he was regretting because he's feeling so much sadness in his heart. So many people who are his friends and relatives and people he knew, they all died in this battlefield, and he was feeling really sad at heart. Even though so many Vyasadeva and so many others tried to console Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was not pacified at all. And so he, accompanied by his brothers and Lord Krishna himself, in their kingly attire, with all grand paraphernalia, everything, they are approaching Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev is a Kshatriya and he wants to see all his these Pandavas in their glory. So Krishna is encouraging them to come like that. And there he was lying. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that it was just like a demigod who has fallen from higher planetary system. That was the beauty of Bhishma Dev. You know, he was glowing. He was a celibate. He was a brahmachari all his life, and such a great saintly person. And he was ready to leave his body. This is the context. And so here is Bhishma Dev speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. This is text 31, Canto 1, chapter 13. Ajadashatru kritamai. One second. Text 12. Aho kshatam aho anyayam yadyuyam dharmanandana jivitum nadhata klishtam vipradharma chudashraya. Aho kshatam aho anyayam yadyuyam dharmanandana jivitum nadhata klishtam vipradharma chudashraya. Vipra dharma achyuta ashraya. This is emphasis given to this. The translation is Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, what terrible suffering and what terrible injustice you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion." Three things: the Brahmanas, God, and religion. Here, Krishna is addressed as Achyuta. Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya. Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, what terrible suffering and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion." Put by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma Dev could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by the Brahmanas, the Lord, and religious principles. As long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Bhishma Dev encouraged Maharaj Yudhishthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of life. Bhishma Dev, as one of the authorities in the line, wanted to impress this point upon the Pandavas. So Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, what terrible suffering, what terrible injustices You good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. Just give me 1 second. So, here was Yudhishthira Maharaj approaching Bhishma Dev. He is about to undertake a great task. He will be crowned as the king of the Kurus. And it is a great task ruling this kingdom. And so, he is ready to embark on this journey. And his father is not there to instruct him. But we have to understand Bhishma Dev was doing this job for quite some time because of so many calamities in this family. Even though he did not want the kingdom, Bhishma Dev was ruling the kingdom in one sense. So he was so experienced, he was so wise. So everybody looked upon him as the source of guidance. And so here he was, instructing Bhishma Dev. So he's saying that you Pandavas, even though, you were so righteous, he said, you did not deserve to remain alive. That does not mean they did not deserve to live. That is not what he meant. What he meant was that we don't know how you managed to stay alive in spite of all these tremendous difficulties. You did manage to live alive. Somehow you managed to survive. Why? Because of these three important things. One is by the protection of the devotees. The second one was protection by Achyuta, Krishna. And the third one was protection by Dharma. So Lord Krishna, you can see he is addressed by different names during different situations. Particularly in Bhagavad Gita, you will see Arjuna addressing Krishna, calling him different names during different circumstances. And there is a reason why a particular name is used, because it is something to do with that particular circumstance. So for example, when Arjuna was, Krishna asked Arjuna to fight. You go and fight. And Arjuna was finding it so difficult to fight. And so he started giving all these excuses to Krishna for not fighting. And at that point, Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Janardana. So the meaning of the word Janardana is, Jana means people. Ardhana, one who can kill the people. So Arjuna is telling to Krishna, you are Janardana, you can kill, so why are you making me do this job? Why don't you take up this job, my dear Janardana? This is how Krishna is being addressed by Arjuna. It's so nice to see when you study Bhagavad Gita, various contexts Krishna is addressed in so many sweet ways by Arjuna. So in this case, Bhishma Dev is calling Krishna as Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible. Krishna is infallible, particularly under these circumstances where his priority is to protect his devotees. But if you look at Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna is not infallible. He is Chuta. He is subservient to the will of his devotees. So what he does, when Krishna is playing with the cowherd boys in Vrindavan, sometimes they form two different teams, and there will be team leads, and they want to pick certain cowherd boys to join their team. And they will say one team leader will pick some of Krishna's special friends. Another team leader will pick the other friends. Everybody picks everyone, but finally, they will not pick Krishna. Krishna is left out. And the reason is they will say, you Krishna, if you are on my side, we will all fail, we wouldn't win. And so we don't want to pick you. And so Krishna is subservient to the will of his devotees. So that is Krishna's position in Vrindavan. So he's not Achyuta there. He's like, he will do anything for his devotees. And that is the nature of Krishna in Vrindavan, his loving relationship with his devotees. But here in this particular context, Bhishma Dev is addressing Krishna as Achyuta. You are infallible. Here in this context, Krishna is looking after the needs of his devotees. He cannot fail. One who has taken shelter of him, he gives 100% assurance. You don't need to do anything else. I will protect you. So that promise he keeps. So he is infallible. So in addition, Bhishma Dev is not only addressing Krishna as Achyuta, he says, Vipra Dharma Achyuta Ashraya. Dharma. You are also protected by Dharma. Achyuta is protecting you. Dharma is protecting you. So why Dharma? So here is a very interesting topic. There is a context where Krishna is very young. He's a 3-year-old boy. He wants to go cow herding. He goes and demands his father, Nanda Maharaj, I want to take the cows out to the pasture. Nanda Maharaj gives all excuses. He says, what are you trying to say? You are only a small boy. You are 3-year-old. The cows are so big. Compared to you, the cows are so huge. You cannot go herding the cows. But Krishna is not that easily, he cannot be like argued upon. And so he demands, like, I have to go. And Nanda Maharaj is arguing with him. And finally he gives in and says, okay, you are small, so you can take the calves, not the cows. You can take the calves. So Krishna is ready to go. And it was the Gopashtami time, it's month of Kartik. It is the second Ashtami, falling few weeks prior to the end of Kartik. And Krishna is ready to go. He had his cow herding stick, he had his buffalo horn, and all these things. And Mother Yashoda is kind of extremely concerned. This 3-year-old boy, his delicate feet, how is he going to walk on the stones and the thorns? And I cannot send him like this. No mother would feel like sending a 3-year-old boy to the forest. And so she comes with this most beautiful slippers, which are like jewel embedded, the pointy toes like the kings wear in India, tiny little shoes. And she will come and give this to Krishna, and she will say, Krishna, please wear this. It will protect your feet. The whole day you are going to be in the heat, dead heat of Vrindavan. You will be so tired. Why don't you, I'll send a servant with you holding an umbrella over your head. And Krishna will say, no, I cannot accept this. You have to give all the cows and the calves the same shoes. You have to give them an umbrella. You need to send a person to hold that umbrella. If you do that, then I will accept. But it is interesting to know that Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. So 900,000 cows, each cow has got 4 feet. And so that is that 3.6 million shoes you will need. It has to be like that, pointy toes, the gold, the embedded with stones and all that. You have to have an umbrella, which is 900,000 umbrellas, not an ordinary one, which with the glittering decorations and everything. And you need a servant for that. So it's like too much. And Mother Yashoda said, what are you talking? They are animals. Why do the animals need this? And Krishna said, how dare you speak like that? Animals, they are our life. They are our life and soul. They protect us. The cows protect us. And so, you cannot say that they are not human beings. You cannot provide them with these things. And so, in that context, Krishna will say one simple sutra. And that sutra is just a 3-word thing. Krishna say, Dharmo rakshati rakshataha. Dharmo rakshati rakshataha. One who protects Dharma will be protected by Dharma itself. This was Krishna's sutra. And here, Bhishma Dev is selling Vipra, Dharma, Achyuta, Ashraya. Vipra, Dharma, Achyuta, Ashraya. The three things that will protect. Achyuta will protect you, Dharma will protect you, and Vipra, the devotees, they will protect you. This is so. Raksha really means protection. Rakshasi means you protect. Rakshati means he protects. So one who is protecting dharma, dharma will protect that person. So what it means is, if you take to Krishna consciousness is a self-sustaining process. What is a self-sustaining process? If you are Krishna conscious, you don't need something else. People will say, okay, I am Krishna conscious, but I also need to work so hard to make my millions of money or whatever. You don't need to do all those things, because all you need to be is Krishna conscious. Krishna consciousness will take care of you. That is what it is. Dharmo rakshati rakshataha. And that does not mean we shouldn't do our worldly duties or dharma. We have our dharma. School children, they have to go to school. They have to do their duty as a student. It's not like you just discard your duty and do whatever else you want to do. But the point is that if you take dependence on Krishna, you can be assured that Krishna will protect. You don't need to go through another subsidiary process. So it is self-sustaining. So Lord Chaitanya speaks in Chaitanya Charitamrita that faith means sarva karma krita hoy. Faith means it is simply you do your duty. It is taken care of. You don't need to do something else. So Pandavas and Queen Kunti, all of them, they had absolute faith in Krishna's protection. They were not counting on somebody else to come for protecting them. They, under all circumstances, when they went through tribulations in their life, when they were happy, when they were sad, their only shelter was Krishna. This is how they lived their life. So they had no other concern, other dependency. So they knew for sure Krishna will protect them. They knew absolute surrender was needed. And Kunti had her own realizations about this. So actually the next verse in this canto speaks about how Bhishma Dev is seeing Kunti and Kunti's own realizations about sufferings, how she dealt with those situations. So we'll just visit that for a moment. So next verse, Bhishma Dev says, Samsthithe tirtha pantu prithabhala prajavadu yusmat kride bahun kleshan prapta thokavati muhu. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great general Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. When you were grown up, she suffered a great deal, but also because of your actions. In other words, Kunti's sufferings were double-fold, because Kunti's husband died when she was young, and that itself was a suffering, and she was left with 5 children to look after. But when the Pandavas were small children, she had to face problems of looking after the little kids. But when they grew and became young adults, they had their own fair share of problems also. So there is a saying, when the children are little, you have little problems. When they grow bigger, you have bigger problems. So the problems never go away. So that was her case. But Prabhupada writes here, the suffering of Kunti Devi they are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of early widowhood to get her minor children brought up in the royal family. Then her children grew up and she continued to suffer because of her son's actions. So her suffering continued. This means she was destined to suffer by providence. Can you see what Prabhupada is writing? She was destined to suffer by providence. And this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. She was destined to suffer. No matter what she did, she could not have avoided it. She was not looking for suffering, but suffering came her way. So Prabhupada is writing, she was destined to suffer. And this is something we all have to understand. Problems will come uninvited in life. So how do you process this? This is very, very interesting. So life-changing situations, it happens in everybody's life. And so it changes the course of our life. So because Kunti's husband died when she was young, and the Pandu's co-wife, her co-wife, who is Madri, she went into the funeral pyre. She got all the 5 kids in her hands. She has to look after the kid as a mother and as a father. And when the little kids were tortured by the Kauravas, they ran to the mother only. And then when they grew up a little bit, when Bhima was fighting with Duryodhana and Dushasana, and he was fed poison and so many problems that happened later, every problem Kunti had to address. There wasn't anybody else. So Kunti's suffering went on double-fold. Her own pain by the separation from her husband, and the pain caused by the children themselves. And she could not solve this. So when the problem happened in our life, in the present day world, sometimes people turn to different other things for solving the problems. One such thing is people take to intoxication. Alcohol is a problem solver. So there is a terminology that is used which says that I tried to drown my problems. Drown the problems in the alcohol. But there is a saying also, I tried to drown my problems, but they learned to fly. Means the problems take its own shape, and you tried to solve these problems, and the problems don't go away. It comes in another shape or color. So it's not that easy to solve problems. So Kunti came to the point of accepting the problems. And that she talks about her own realization in the previous chapters, the Kunti's prayers. This is such a sweet prayer. Queen Kunti's prayers is something which is good for all of us. We should learn. So this one prayer, one verse in the previous chapter, she's saying, Vipada Shantu Tat Shashwat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavado Darshanam Yatsyat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. Beautiful. She says, I wish all these calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. So when they were suffering, Kunti and her children, they were suffering, Krishna was present. Krishna was always there for them. But the battle was over, and Yudhishthira became the king, and now Krishna is leaving them. And that is when Kunti Devi is saying this. When we were going through all these sufferings, you were there with us, Krishna. I wish those calamities will happen again and again so that you will be with us. But seeing you means there is no suffering. This is Kunti's realization. So, it's interesting that what is suffering? Suffering is something, it's a relative thing. When you are not suffering, when you are suffering, when you are relieved of that suffering, you feel a great relief. When the suffering is not there, that you think it is not suffering, but then the suffering comes back again. So it's like a suffering less condition. It's a temporary situation. So it seems in Europe, olden times, there was a thing called witch hunt, and they had a dunking chair, And what they used to do was they will catch people who they suspect to be witches, and they put a weight on that chair and they tie them to those chairs, and they drop the weight, and then the chair and the person will dunk under the water. For 3 minutes or so, you keep them under the water and bring them back. So that person is like really suffocating for breath. And so when they come back up, they get a good breath and they are like quite relieved of that suffering. So supposing if that person is dead, oh well, that was not a witch, that was a human being. What can we do anyway? You know, that person is dead, gone, forget about it. So if the person is not dead, oh, this is a witch then. Now we have to burn this person to death at the stake. This is what the Europeans did. Nice place, isn't it? So this is like dunking and bringing them back out. So this suffering-less condition. That is what, you know, people think like that. Okay, now there is suffering and now there is no suffering. Now there is suffering. But actually the suffering, it does not really affect the soul. It's all relating to our material body and the condition. And breathing, after all, is a natural process for all of us. Breathing does not take any effort on our side. We are not appreciating that we are breathing without a problem at this moment. If you get dunked underwater, you will learn to appreciate. Until then, you will not appreciate breathing it's an important thing. So it's like a relative situation. So this is what I know. So Kunti realized this, and that is from that realization she's speaking in this way. So this is very interesting to understand. So suffering position and non-suffering. She came to the point of seeing that whether it is suffering or non-suffering, she took great pleasure in taking shelter of Krishna. There is an inner connection she established with Krishna, and she took great satisfaction. She had no attachment to her family or friends anymore. It didn't matter whether they were there or anything at all. And so I was looking up in the Webster dictionary the definition for suffering. So not suffering, definition for surrender, because she was in a totally surrendered condition. Remember, our topic today is surrender. So both Kunti and the Pandavas were totally surrendered. So dictionary says that, the Webster dictionary says, people who are generally concerned, the dictionary definition is the actions of yielding one's person or giving up of possessions of something especially into the power of another. That is surrender. Meaning the action of yielding one's person, oneself, yielding oneself, or giving up of possessions of something that you possess, you give it up. Why? Especially you give that into the power of someone else. Like in this case, Krishna. You are completely surrendering yourself to Krishna. That is surrender. So now I'll bring your attention to another factor of life. Death. Take for example death. In death, there are two types of death. One is the natural death. Natural death really means separation of the soul from the body. Separation of the soul from the body. That is natural death. And then there is a spiritual death. What is spiritual death? Separation of the soul from God himself. That is spiritual death. So in biblical context, there is a little tiny thing in the biblical context. There was this interaction between Jesus Christ and one of the persons, a person who his father was dead, and Christ was passing through there, and Christ happened to see this man, and he will tell this person, you follow me, and let us go and preach. And so this man answered, Lord, let me go and bury my father, and then I am completely yours. Let me go and bury my father. I am completely yours. This was his answer. And Christ will say to him, let the dead bury the dead.
let the dead bury the dead. He said, but you go and preach the glories of the Lord. What does that mean? Let the spiritually dead bury the naturally dead. Let the spiritually dead bury the naturally dead, which means someone who has no other business, let them go and bury the dead body. But what is your duty? Your duty is to go out and preach the glories of the Lord. This was Christ's instruction to this person. So there are many things that keeps us from surrendering to Krishna. So what was Queen Kunti's example? Kunti's example was from her own personal experience. She learned, I don't want to try to solve these problems. When the Pandavas were banished into exile, she didn't try to solve the problem. She could have approached somebody and tried to figure this out. She didn't even bother. She just went with her children to the forest. That's what she did. She took shelter of Krishna. She simply went with them. That's what it was so easy for her because she was such an exalted devotee. But you try to surrender yourself, all of us, including me, surrender yourself to Krishna. It's like a difficult task. There are so many things which keeps us from surrendering. What are those things? We have our personal obligations. We have our personal aspirations. So many things. I have to finish my job. I have to send my children to school. I have to get them married. I have to make them have children. And, it's like, it's a never-ending series of things. Even after they produce children too, still there is problems, But you will still not give up. You will continue doing the same thing. Next generation and the next one and the next one too. We will never stop at this. This is our nature. So this is our personal aspirations, and we have our family obligations. After I finish all my duties to my father and great-grandfather and everybody else, and if there is time, maybe I will try to. I have no time to chant the holy names of Krishna because, I haven't finished my obligation, including my laundry. There's a long laundry list of things to do. Because I didn't finish my laundry, I cannot do the chanting of my 16 rounds. No, what 16 rounds? Even one round. And then you have your social expectations. Everything comes in your way. Every single excuse that we can figure out, we will figure it out, if nobody tells, we will find a way to. All our excuses will be like there. But Krishna says in 10th chapter Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajadam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam tenamam upayantite tesham evanu kampartam aham atnanajam tamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnanadipena bhashvataha. So for those who are completely surrendered to me, He takes care of those person's need. You don't need to specially endeavor for that. So these worldly goals for us, worldly goals are very, very valuable. We have to remember to the extent that it serves our spiritual goals. We cannot say that my worldly goal is my priority. No, your worldly goal is of some priority as long as it serves your spiritual goals. If not, if it helps you to cultivate devotion to Krishna, if it helps others to cultivate devotion to Krishna, worldly goal is okay. But if it does not, no. So, from the perspective of eternity, you have to look at from the perspective of eternity, these are all our worldly activities, no matter who says what. Whatever activities we undertake, they are simply distractions from the path of spiritual progress. There is no question about it. However way you put it, we may say, okay, this is my worldly goal. This is really very important for me. The other day, I was talking with my nephew. He was telling me, I'm looking back at my life, and every stage of my life, I was thinking, okay, I should have done this, I should have. I go back and I would redo the same thing. And now I'm realizing at this stage, okay, I finished my studies, I'm making my living and all those things. I'm still having my same aspirations, some other aspiration. I said it will keep on coming after you. You don't let it go, it is going to come after you. You will try to justify to yourself, these aspirations of mine are very important, nothing else is of importance, this is important for me at this time of my life. We will justify that. All of us, we will do that. But that justification, we are not realizing it is robbing our precious time. Why precious time? Ultimately, our time is to be utilized for realizing our relationship with Krishna, going back to Godhead. So we get infatuated with material success. You know, whatever we attain, we are not satisfied. We want to attain something more, you know, you get married, or I need to have children, and now you have to have them get married. They have to have their children. I have to save money for myself and my husband and my children and their children's children and their next generation. You are not going to take one penny with you, but your aspirations are increasing and increasing and increasing. You completely forget your spiritual goals in the process of doing this. So we no longer feel the urgency or the necessity to cultivate devotion to Krishna. That was not what Queen Kunti did. You can compare that, okay? So to protect us from this tremendous loss of our time and focus, which should be directed towards Krishna, sometimes calamities come in our life. It's a good thing. I'm not saying we should ask for calamities. So when those calamities or life-changing situations come, that's very interesting. Then what do? Don't sit there and cry, you know. You have to take shelter of Krishna.